Shining bright lotus.
Well, thank you for being here today. Bankei and the Unborn Mind. So this came about. Well, sometimes I come upon a book. It might be a piece of art or poetry or a song or piece of music, all kind, some, and it touches me deeply, and not merely. It's not because I might admire it, but it's more that it it hits me somewhere. It's like a transmission, and that's been my experience with Bankei. And I've known about Bankei for some time, and I was given a book. A friend of mine gifted me a book, and then I eventually looked at the book and I read the book, and then I went and got another book. So those books are The Unborn, The Life and Teachings of Zen Master Bankei, translated by Norman Waddell, and Bankei Zen Transmission, translations from the Record of Bankei, translated by Peter Haskell. So they're both Zen scholars, and very good, and they translate from Japanese, and they've translated Bankei. And then also there's a famous scholar called D.T. Suzuki, who's a Japanese Buddhist scholar, and he's written a lot about Bankei, and he actually revived Bankei in the last 50 years. And he's written another book that called The Transmission of, no, it's called, what is it called? An Introduction to Zen Buddhism. And he's a great scholar, and he's good. So, and it reminds me of a book. I found a book a couple of years ago in a thrift store called The Bodhisattva of Compassion by John Blofeld. And it's not about Bankei, but I had a transmission experience from that book. And it was about Kuan Yin, and it just, like, I met Kuan Yin. I was like, and I'm going, wow, this is a book. Is that possible? Well, yeah, it's possible in my experience. So that's what happened with Bankei and me. So he was born in 1622 during the Tokugawa period, and he was a contemporary of Hakuin. And like Hakuin, he was from the Rinzai school. And at that time, the Japanese society was very structured and very authoritarian and very influenced by Confucianism, which came from China. And it dominated public life. And a lot of Buddhist institutions were closely tied to the government power at that time. So the temples became quite bureaucratic and formalized, and many people felt the living spirit of Zen had declined because of this. And practice became very ritualized, and teaching became very intellectual, and enlightenment was discussed but not realized a lot. And Bankei was sent to a Confucian school. And also at that time, there were a lot of, you can look it up, there's movies about it and books. A lot of Portuguese went to Japan and brought Christianity, but it was really forbidden by authorities. And so if you were known to meet with a Christian, or heaven forbid become a Christian, you were in deep trouble. And so what they did was you had to sign on with a temple and get a certificate that you had an allegiance with a temple. And if the authorities came to check you, you'd have to show your certificate. And if you didn't have it, you might be in deep trouble, including possibly death. So that was a time that Hakuin lived. And so at school, he went to, they had this in Confucianism, it's called The Great Learning. It's a book. They had to learn it, memorize it, recite it, write it. And it says The way of great learning lies in illuminating bright virtue. That's one line from this book. And Bankei became kind of obsessed with it. He went, oh, the way of great learning lies in illuminating bright virtue. Well, what's that? Well, I can kind of relate to that. That sounds quite an interesting line. Well, what is bright virtue? And he wanted to know, what is it? And he asked his teachers, he asked the priests, but nobody really could come up, seemed like, with a very good answer, and he was really frustrated. So eventually he left home and devoted himself to his spiritual practice. And he practiced with great intensity, and so intensely that he nearly died. He didn't eat enough, he sat too long, he was cold, and he lived in this little hut, and he struggled. And one day he was really ill, and he felt something in his throat, and he coughed up, and he coughed, and there was this big black gob of phlegm came out, and he spat it, and it hit the wall. And when that happened, something happened to him. Opened. I mean, the burden of seeking dropped away. He realized what he'd been searching for had never been absent. That the mind always hears, sees, knows, responds naturally, effortlessly, and that everything is already complete. And this was his realization, which he later called the Unborn. So he started to teach, and he did have some teachers. Umpo was one. He was he was an abbot of a temple, and then there was a Dosha Chogin, was a Chinese man who really helped him, and they didn't speak each other's language, but they could write the kanji characters and read when they wanted to communicate. So he was a very strong influence. But anyway, Bankei became very well known and helped many people. People traveled from all over Japan to hear him speak. Crowds were so large that they had to be accommodated in shifts. And his audience included samurai, merchants, women, artisans, farmers, prostitutes, servants, gamblers, gangsters, housewives, mothers, monks, nuns, people from every walk of life. Some came simply to hear his compelling teaching, others came with problems. Monks came to ask about their meditation practice, families came if they were in conflict, and his message was simple and immediate. It was abide in the unborn. This was his constant refrain. So what is this unborn then? This unborn is something that is always here. And for me, that is, it's in Mondo. I find it in Mondo. It's the place that never changes. It's this vast, empty, boundless place that is here. It's with you, it's with me, and through Mondo and my practice, it's true. And also, we did it this morning. I find it's like I'll say, we are this light. We are this light, pure selfless awareness. We rely upon selfless awareness at a deeper. Do not rely upon concepts of self and other that appear. And so it goes on. So it's saying we do know this. It's within us. We don't rely upon our emotions. So what Bankei said, that thoughts arise, feelings arise, sensations arise, and then they pass. So none of this is a problem. The problem begins when we cling to what arises, when we identify with our thoughts, when we grasp at our emotions, when we resist. Then we leave the unborn. So Bankei says, even while listening to a talk like now, you might actually be aware of something else that's going on. You might hear a sound. You might see something in your room. I see a lamp. I see some shoji screens over there. I've got a Tara statue, and I'm still talking to you, and I'm aware that I'm sharing with you. I see your faces there. So he's saying that this just happens. This is always here. So he says we obstruct our natural functioning. One of the ways is to be self-centered. The habit of interpreting everything from me or mine. So yesterday, some of you might know Daidan. I did an exercise with Daidan, and it was really helpful. And he, well, there was a couple of exercises, and one was the me, mine. And so, for example, I have a dog. I love it. I adore my dog, and I see my dog there, and I look at my dog, and I say, "Oh, Flash." Sometimes we have eye contact, and so. But if I go from me, how is that animal experiencing not just me, but everything? So I could take myself away to be in another person's situation, or even like somebody maybe I have a different opinion with or a different experience. So if I take myself out of myself and endeavor to put myself in their shoes, what does that look like? It's from their place, from that place. So it's not all about me. And we get into that place. Bankei said we get into bad habits that we mistake for our true nature, but they're not original. We learn them. We get conditioned. One of the things I like, he said, he told people, when you get angry, notice what happens. So, for example, with anger, does anger improve the situation? Well, sometimes you could find that it might, but my experience, mostly it doesn't. So does it help? Or does it make things worse? So he says, why would you trade your precious Buddha mind for a fighting demon? So you could say that with many things, like say jealousy. Something happens and you're jealous of somebody and you go on and you get entangled with it and you keep chewing on it. Well, just get over it. You don't have to. He's saying, just find that place of little bit of distance. So I relate to all this. So that's obviously, I'm giving this Dharma talk. It touched me deeply. So he also said something that I like. He said that Zazen is all the time. It's not just on the cushion. So he taught that Zazen practice is good. And they used to do Zazen practice. They'd have, say, we'll practice for 1 incense stick or 2 incense sticks. And he used to recommend a certain amount. And then he said, but it's not limited to the cushion. So when you sit in Buddha mind. And when you stand up in Buddha mind. When you sleep in Buddha mind. When you get up in Buddha mind. So that all life, everything you do becomes a practice, everything that we do. And this touches me deeply. So he reminds me that life is actually quite simple. Sometimes it's not always easy, but it's actually simple. And that we continue to create these narratives, we make up problems, we get attached to our problems. And he said, breathing happens. Then walking happens, sitting down happens, talking happens, and just being pure. So I remember one time I did a retreat in Los Angeles, and we had an assignment, and we went to Santa Monica for the day, and each went off on our own and in silence. And I remember, I think I'd had something to eat, and it was like, well, what's next? Where do I need to go? And I mean, this sounds, maybe you think, oh, this is, pretty obvious. Well, actually, it was a big deal for me at the time, and I still can find that place. I remember feeling, oh, what should I do? And it was like, I just noticed that I lifted up my foot and I put it in front of me and I put it down. Oh, and then the next one. And I took a step and I took another step. And I was just like in surprise. I was like, oh, okay, really simple. Just, I don't need to think about it. My body was telling me where to go and I went wherever I went. And I know you might think that's very simple, but it is that simple. And that's been my experience. That is my experience. And that life just happens. There's no controller. So the invitation, I think, is not to keep becoming. We don't have to keep becoming. We don't have to perfect ourselves. And we don't have to attain future enlightenment. We were joking before this call, I think, eons and far away. No, how about now? How about now? How about this moment now? Sitting, looking at your computer, hearing this woman speak about Bankei, and don't interfere. Just trust it. Trust it. The more we trust it, the more we can abide. So how are we doing for time? Okay, I think maybe I'll leave you with Bankai's essential instruction. Don't switch your Buddha mind for anything else. Don't switch it for anger. Don't switch it for fear or craving or self-judgment or for spiritual ambition that you're going to get something or be something. Just this. Just this. And all of us, I believe all of us here on this call have had an opening, and you know this place. So just remember it. And I believe that even people that haven't had that, they have had that experience. And some people have had the tiniest weeny bit and they've seen it. So if that's the case, then it can just go a little bit bigger, like opening some curtains when you're a bit afraid of being outside, and you go, oh, and then you open them a bit more and you go, oh, wow, look what's out there. That looks interesting. Oh, there's a tree, or oh, there's somebody walking. Oh, and then we can live our whole lives like that. Why not? Isn't that what we're doing? That's definitely why I'm here. So with that, I'll leave it there and let us abide in the unborn. Thank you for listening.
Shining bright lotus.